was going to be handled by the state government of Oyo State. I think we need to also commend the Oyo State governor for coming out as soon as this happened, pushing out, the narrative, giving out numbers and all of that, and ensuring that everyone stays up to date. Also, he was one that gave the information as regards, the fact that it was due to illegal mining or illegal miners, and that was attributing the event to that, because there were already some misinformation going around that it was a bomb blast or whatnot. So please, let's put that out there. It was it's connected to illegal miners. Let's put that out there. Well, let's go on to the major stories that trending this morning, but that's the hot topic at this time now, is the Ibadan blast. But before we move on, good morning, Fuad. How are you doing?
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing too?
Well, I'm well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. A very unfortunate situation that happened in Ibadan yesterday at around 8 p.m. or was it to 8? So, 7:45, between 7:45 and 8 p.m.
7:45 p.m. Yeah.
Yes, that's when it happened. Well, the statement of the governor, we have that already. The governor has come forward to put something out, but then let's move on now to other stories that we have this morning across the papers. I'll start with the Punch newspaper, and the major headline on the front page of the Punch: abduction epidemic, anti-kidnapping protest holds in Abuja today as 10 suspects arrested. And we have a rider here that says Tinubu vows crackdown on kidnappers, agents of darkness, and abductors kill hotel bar man. So apparently it's becoming a serious situation for kidnapping and abduction, to the point that the media has now termed it an epidemic everywhere across the country. It's not just in Abuja, but it's a serious problem across Nigeria, because there's also a story that we have in Edo State. There's also one in Niger and Nasarawa. So it's something that is big issue here, and we have here different government officials are pushing out statements. The president is pushing out statement, the IGP is pushing out statement, the FCT minister is also meeting with different security chiefs and all. So what we have now as of today is that members of the Middle Belt Youth Forum will today hold a protest in Abuja as regards the rising cases of kidnapping in the region and the insecurity that has ravaged parts of the country. Yes, this is coming against the backdrop of the arrest of 10 suspected bandits by the military. And the president of the Middle Belt Youth Forum, Brent Kane, disclosed that protesters will march peacefully to the Attorney General of the Federation's office to demand the declaration of the kidnappers and bandits as terrorists. That's to announce them as terrorists. Let's move away from the bandits, and kidnappers' name. Let's just call it what it is, basically. And also calling for an end to the killings and abductions across the country. Before we push forward for hard, in the 2024 budget proposal, the bulk of the allocation went to security with about 3.2 trillion naira. And aside from this 2020, even in 2023, the bulk of our allocations, appropriations in recent times has been into security. But we seem to still have a huge problem as regards insecurity. What's your own analysis of this current epidemic that we seem to be facing, the kidnapping situation now?
Well, okay, let's first start by saying I think the protest is in order.
Okay.
At least to call the attention of the government and our security agencies to the fact that this has become a very big problem. I think the Punch newspaper is in order to have called it an epidemic. It's even more than an epidemic, it's become a pandemic, if you permit me to use that word.
Okay.
Because again, it's now widespread. There's hardly any part of the country that is completely safe, from activities of corded kidnappers or bandits. I also want to agree with, the protesters, these organizations that have said that, look, they should be labeled terrorists. Because again, what we are unleashing on Nigerians is nothing but terror. So it's also in order to see them as terrorists and be treated as such. And the reality is that, look, these carrot and stick approach seems not to be working. These kinetic or non-kinetic means of trying to resolve all of these insecurity issues. Especially in the northern part of the country, is not working and may not work. And that's why people are saying that the best way to deal with this issue is not just to go after these criminals and terrorists, but to also punish them heavily. Look, I'm sure, I think it's in the Punch newspaper. So far, about 3 or 4 persons have now been killed. It was an abduction spree to the point of killing innocent children on the demand that, look, people have not been able to provide ransom. These are not human, these are just complete animals that should be treated as such. And so the idea of, pardoning or all these kinetic or non-kinetic, all these grammar we're speaking, I think it should just stop. We should just treat these guys as criminals that they are. We grew up, people might say that's an extreme part of our life. But we grew up knowing that, look, at some point in this same country, if you are caught for ordinary stealing, you are taken to the barbecue to face firing squad just for stealing. so how much more somebody that drugs a family and kills them and demands for ransom? And then we begin to talk kinetic, non-kinetic, carrot and stick. You begin to speak
so you think that the soft hands that we've been using soft hands to deal with this particular situation. It's time for us to use
soft hands to deal with criminals of this day. These are murderers. These are criminals. These are terrorists we are talking about here. And it's unfortunate. Look, I was almost going to get depressed yesterday when the picture of, I think, the Ario family emerged.
Yes.
I think their 13-year-old daughter that was slaughtered, that was murdered by this beast. Look, that would ordinarily depress anybody. That in this same country, we have gotten to the point. Look, are we living with these kinds of monsters? Nigeria has gotten to the point where we are now infiltrated by these monsters. And you know what, Sandra? Yes, the president has been holding meetings. Yes, we heard yesterday he had a meeting with the service chiefs. I probably think this would be like the second meeting he's having with the service chiefs in like a week. Again, yesterday we had to call out the FCT minister, for concentrating too much on the politics of Rivers State and abandoning what is supposed to be one of his responsibilities in Abuja. And of course, we also got meeting a report yesterday that the FCT minister is also meeting with security agencies and also seeing how it can also be a part of all of the arrangements to secure Abuja. But what we are saying, Sandra, is, look, must we always be reactive? Why can't we be proactive? Must we always wait for terrible things like this to happen before we begin to see efforts, by the government or by a security agency? Look, all of the monies we are throwing into insecurity year in, year out, it should be enough for our security agencies and intelligence community to be ahead of this criminal. That's what security, look, modern security, 21st century security requires that your security agencies and intelligence community have to be ahead of the criminals. They are not supposed to be reactive. Somebody was calling my attention to something, Sandra. Okay. In the US today, the only problem they have is their own internal problems, their own ethics, their own man-made headache of gun violence. But since the issue of September 11, the terrorist attack on September 11, have you seen any attack on the soil of US again by foreign invaders? Since September 11, have you heard that somebody somewhere came attacked plane or did something in the US? No, because that is 21st century security arrest. You must always be ahead of these people. Are we just seeing kidnapping? Are we just seeing activities of these kidnappers and bandits? Why can't we get ahead of them? Why can't we nip this in the bud? Are we helpless?
Are we helpless? Thank you. That's a good question, Fuad. Is it that we're helpless? Is that nothing can be done? I was trying to highlight the fact that we have spent so much money. So it can't be that it's not that we don't have enough resources or we don't have enough personnel to go after these people. But what exactly is holding us back from making that all-important decision, from pulling that plug? Because the funds are available, the people are available, the personnel are there. So what exactly could be the reason why we
in one of the reports, Sandra, Pantami is saying the security outfit, the security operatives are not working with the NIN SIM model that he put in place. And I'm asking, are we saying at the level of the intelligence community and our security operatives, there's no synergy? So when Pantami was doing all those NIN and all of those kinds of things, there was no synergy. There was no sharing of information and briefs as to how that is supposed to work. But that's what Bantamin is saying, although there are people who are saying that it's saying this now because it's out of government. You understand? So because again, we keep putting money every year into security. We keep talking about buying equipment. Yeah, people can talk about the fact that remuneration, morale boosting, and all of that. But I think that we have a fundamental problem with the structure of our security operations. That's number one. The current structure of security in the country needs a complete revamp. If what we have been doing for almost 3 decades is not working, who thinks it's going to work? That's number one. Number two is I suspect that we have a problem with systemic corruption within our security. Most likely there are bad heads within our security operatives that are also making serious money from this level of insecurity. So you understand what I'm saying? I think that we also need to look at that because these things are too coordinated. Not to have a hand of one or two modes within our security operatives. So it's a terrible problem, and I think that, look, every other thing has to stop now for us to secure the lives and properties of Nigerians. Everything about the economy, about this, about that, all of the growing promises and renewed hope story has to stop. There's no hope you can renew for any Nigerian anywhere in the country without first guaranteeing the security of lives and properties of the people. The renewed hope story or slogan or talk or conversation has to start with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu being able to secure the lives and properties of Nigerians. That's where the renewed hope story must start. And if that fails, every other thing has failed.
Thank you very much, Said Fuad. We also have here to discuss the security situation in the country, and he gave the men a marching order to address the security crisis. That's not the first time we hear that, but we also have here South governors have convened a security meeting for Thursday. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki will host the governors of the South State for the Brist Commission meeting, and that's Brist, just in case. That's Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Edo, and Delta, which was established in 2010 under Article 14 of Brist Agreement and signed June 13, 2011. And in the meeting, also in the meantime, the Inspector General of Police has ordered the decimation of insurgents across the country, especially in the Federal Capital Territory. And during the meeting, the IG mandated the DIG of Police, Department of Operations, to coordinate the upskilled security strategies put in place to decimate kidnappers and other criminally minded individuals in the FCT and immediately restore normalcy. Just a lot of meetings being convened at this time as regards this particular situation, but I really don't know if we should expect anything from all of these meetings and all of these marching orders and all of these statements, but the most important thing is, I think all Nigerians just read a newspaper as regards abduction rocks Ibadan, and that story is on page 29 of the Punch newspaper. So just very quickly, we know we've already touched this particular story earlier on, but then no fewer than 10 persons were feared killed and 15 others hospitalized on yesterday following an explosion that rocked Ibadan at around 8 p.m. Among the affected areas were a section of the Governor's Office Secretariat, Oyo State House of Assembly, the residence of the former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Chief Bola Ige, and some other buildings at Olugweru, Akwete, New Garage, Bashorun, Akobo, Songo, and Eleyeli area. All right, and of course, as we mentioned earlier, the governor has come forward to put out a statement as regards this particular situation. Of course, let's see if we have that. All right, yes, somewhere around here. The Oyo State government is aware of reports of an explosion. Residents are urged to remain calm. Security agencies are currently looking into this particular situation. Stories on page 29.
Well, you know what, Sandra, on this particular story?
Yes, please.
For now, we can work with the statement of the governor, the chief security officer of the state. We have sound bites from him. He was at that particular site yesterday.
Yes.
And what he said in the preliminary investigation is that, look, there were illegal miners in that place, and they had brought in dynamite, explosives, for the illegal mining, and that had exploded, and that was the reason for the blast. And I think in part of the statement, he talked about people seeing something and saying something, talking about community responsibility to also giving information when illegal activities are discovered within our community.
Yes.
Like I said, we can still work with that for now. As we speak, we have one or two persons that we have told to also get on the ground, to really see what has happened. Because again, part of the report is showing that more than 20 buildings within that vicinity have collapsed. There are conflicting figures.
Yes.
The governor is saying 2 persons are dead, about 17.
Police
or
PRO is saying something else.
Yes. Whereas the Punch Super is talking about 10 people have been reported dead.
20.
So, but again, that what happened yesterday was around 7:40, 8 o'clock in the evening.
So between then and now, things have happened.
So things could have happened, and I think in the glare of the money, of course, we'll be able to really know what has happened. I think it's a developing story, very, very unfortunate. So I'm sure before the close of business today, or by the time we get far into the morning, afternoon, we should have more reports as to what is happening, what happened in Ibadan, and what is currently still happening. As we speak, I think rescue efforts are still ongoing, evacuation is ongoing, and so it's a developing story. But I think what I'm going to conclude on this is that, look, Sandra, it is still part of our attitude to always be very reactive. We are not proactive. I think somewhere in Barua and Opaja, I think some few years ago, something similar happened in this Lagos, where I think there was a gas plant somewhere, and it exploded, killed people, destroyed property, and that's not the only one. There have been several too. Up till now, Sandra, I'm still not comfortable with this idea of having gas plants in residential areas. So there's this proliferation of gas plants, even in shops, in residential areas.
Yes.
And we've seen several cases of explosion, killing people. Up till now, we are just quiet about it as if it's normal. How can you have these gas cylinders that people use for their business? They are like explosives. I think there was one that happened in Badagry, about 4 people were killed when a gas shop had its plant exploded. So we need to look, because again, we can't just wake up, something happens, or we talk about it, people move on. I still feel concerned that, look, we have gas shops, gas plants, or shops, or what you want to call it, in residential areas. Sometimes you see people cooking, and next to them is a shop
where they're selling gas. That's the one that happened in Mushin sometime last year, where Duma was frying akara.
God bless you, Sandra. There was something that happened in Mushin. You will see somebody cooking rice like this, selling food, and then next to them is a shop where they are selling gas.
Yeah. Well,
in fact, these days you see people using Maraba to sell gas.
That's another one of what I think I remember one that happened, just close to me. No, not at all. There was this young woman who went to refill her gas. So she refilled her gas, and she got into the keke, and she was going. So on her way, or in the keke, they passed by a car that was overheating, and there was an explosion.
And it exploded.
And yes. Very unfortunate, because she just filled the gas, so it still had some probably maybe it was not close tight, I really don't know, but they were just passing by a car that was overheating with the bonnet open and everything, and there was traffic, or the traffic light held them, so they were beside each other, and we just heard a very loud bang, and that's that about that. But that's as regards
we're not saying people should not do business in so standard.
No, just safety.
The first consideration.
Yes.
Business.
All right. Well, more details of that story on page 29 of the Punch newspaper, and we also have here Naira plunges to 1,300 Naira to $1 at parallel market. Okay, so the fall of the Naira is an interesting one to.
This is what they call things fall apart.
This is not falling apart. It's just going. It's just
collapsed, right?
This is collapsing. It's not falling. It doesn't just, they plunge. That's why they keep.
It's a free fall.
at this point, because it's just going. The fall of the naira is a conversation that we need to have another day. But the story is on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. Also, we have here federal government saves 8 trillion naira from subsidy removal and forex reform. That story is on.
Maybe conversation about saving or not saving money.
I don't know. Are we saving? Are we not saving? What exactly is going on? Are we owing NNPC?
Where is that money? If we are saving money, where is that money?
No, you know, Adeola Yusuf has explained what they mean by saving. Should we go into that conversation? You know, Adeola Yusuf has explained what they mean by saving. Should we go into that conversation again?
Instead of us borrowing,
we
are now able to use what we have
rather than borrowing. So that's what they mean by saving. That's what Adeola Yusuf, who is an oil expert, was able to give. But let's see what this particular report is giving us now, or what they mean by this particular saving. The story is on page 20. So the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Oyedele, said that 8 trillion naira will be taken annually from private pockets to government coffers as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy and foreign exchange rate unification. Which private pockets? Let's look at this now. So he said, and I quote, "The sacrifices of the Nigerian people will be the fuel subsidy removal by the government. That is 4 trillion naira savings a year. We did naira flotation. It is not perfect. We're also saving another 4 trillion. So we are talking about roughly 8 trillion naira transferred from the private pockets of the people to the government." What do you think of this logic, Fuad?
No, he said what we always said, that the policy outlook of this government is to take from the people to make more monies available to the government, promising that money will be used judiciously to better their lives. But are we seeing that? Are we seeing that commitment so far? Sandra, are we seeing the commitment from government? Because again, like I said, the policy outlook of this government is very simple. Anybody can argue that's their problem. The reality is that they just want government to have enough money. They want more money for government, not minding what happens to the people. Because the reality is that a lot of their policies are impoverishing more Nigerians. Oh, it is tough, it is difficult, these are tough decisions that we need to make. There's no other way that we could have done it. The president has said it, his cronies have said it, the political class keeps repeating the same thing. But now, the tax reforms man, remember the man, Sandra, the 5 billion naira man?
Yes.
He's now telling us that, look, automatically we are going to be saving about 8 trillion in a year. And that, look, that would also amount to getting money from private pockets to government. The question is that, okay, let us not even say that, look, we make all of this money. So we now wake up again and begin to see government renovating with 5 billion, using 10 billion for digitalization, building car parks, buying SUVs. It's not just about making the money. When we make the money, how do we appropriate the money? What are we spending the money on? That's one conversation that the government is not even ready to talk about, Sandra. They keep talking about, there's no other way. If we didn't remove subsidy, everything would have collapsed. Yes, like I said, the outlook was completely clear. There's a need for government to raise money and make money. But what about the conversation of what we spend the money on? Every year we keep buying computers. We keep spending recklessly, renovating buildings, building car parks, 30 billion to renovate the National Assembly. So you make the 8 trillion and waste it on lavish spending. How does that eventually make sense?
All right. Well, there's also a report here that I'd just like to highlight. But before we move on, this is Mainland 98.3 FM, and you are on to trends in the papers. We have here the DG of the Budget Office, Ben Akabweze, has expressed concern that the country's penchant for operating budgets with room for deficit has left a debt profile that has raised concern. That's another thing. Just the fact that we say, okay, don't worry, we'll get the money later on. And I always ask this question: this budget that we always put forward, where is the money going to come from? What exactly are we spending these funds on? And what we have now is, in the current circumstance now, we believe that our biggest fiscal challenge is raising public revenue. Do you agree with that the biggest fiscal challenge that we have is raising revenue?
it's a challenge that we'll continue to talk about. You drag me into this revenue or spending problem now.
That is because I want us to have an understanding of the fact that we have
never have any understanding.
We have a 28 trillion naira we have a 28 trillion naira budget. How much are we making?
Yes.
For us to have that? Okay, fine, we have that budget. How much are we making? The deficit is there, but what are we now spending all of these funds on?
You know what, Sandra? We've been told that we have about 9-point-something trillion deficit in this budget. Most likely deficit to go up because, again, what we're expecting to make is heavily domiciled on our hopes on what we are able to generate, through the oil sector. So, but if anything happens and that projection is not achieved, it means that we have to raise our deficit up. You understand? Again, there's a lot of hope. Like people like Tʀᴇɪᴅs who are also looking at tax reform, widening the tax net, getting more money from Nigerians, and all of those kinds of projections. But at the end of the day, Sandra,
yes,
you and I sat on the table and we're opening page by page the 2024 appropriation budget. And you saw what we saw in that budget. You understand? Yes, we have a revenue problem, but it is not as problematic as our spending problem. I agree that yes, to a great extent, to a large extent, because of the huge debt hanging on the neck of the country, but it is something trillion that we need to continue to service, that we have a problem with revenue shortfall and all of that. But that problem for me is not as huge or more as problematic as the problem of reckless spending in our appropriations. And it's not even at the federal level alone, Sandra. Go and check the state budgets and see what they put in their different budgets. You understand that, yes, we cannot but agree that we may have a revenue problem, but the biggest problem is that we are just profligating our spending. Reckless, completely reckless.
Yeah,
all manner of nonsense have been captured in the budget. There's an argument now about Betta Edu, the chief of staff too, that why would 3 billion naira be approved to verify the National Social Register? Not to come up with a social register, Sandra, just to verify the National Social Register. 3 billion naira.
That's interesting.
Unless I don't know what billion.
Need dispensation. Well, that's all we
the
can
National
take.
Assembly 30 billion, Sandra, 30 billion.
For that 30 billion is a continuation. Please, I need you to
sacrifice.
Highlight the fact that there was a 37 billion that they got in 2022. So this 30 billion is an addendum. Is not as if that is.
And then somebody will now come and be telling us that there's no other way. Oh, that's the sacrifice you can only make. Oh, if there's no other thing you would have done. There are other things you can have done. Those are just linear arguments to just begin to deceive Nigeria. There are several other things you could have done other than what is being done that is impoverishing Nigeria. We need to say it the way it is.
Thank you very much, Fuad. This is Milan 98.3 FM. We're done with the Punch newspaper. Let's move on to the Guardian newspaper now. The major headline on the front page of the Guardian: federal government opts for conditional divestment as all majors trade $4.5 billion assets. That story is on page 6.
Some of them are abandoning their upstream businesses.
I have that Shell story. It's a serious problem with what? I think it's something that it's a serious problem, something that we really need to talk about. The fact that I think they're living offshore. Is it onshore they're living now or offshore now? That Shell is living
into other sectors,
and I was trying to read up on that and to understand why is this important for us to talk about? Why should we have a conversation? Why is the fact that Shell living onshore Nigeria? Why is it
not only
bad?
Shell, most of the big IOCs.
Now, what
a lot of the big IOCs, yes.
Exactly. So if we look at it from the angle of the fact that onshore or offshore is not just what outsiders are looking at for now, is the fact that if we see a huge incorporation like Shell, for example, living onshore Nigeria, it says a whole lot for it. And we've always talked about the fact that our president and our vice president, they keep traveling out of this country to go and look for FDI.
Davos, Switzerland, looking for FDI.
Thank you. They keep looking for FDIs, and here we have multinationals are living, and now we have the fact that Shell is living onshore Nigeria. It says a whole lot. There's an image that is being projected now to the outside world. The fact that the largest oil exporter in Africa let's look at it from the angle of companies are leaving the largest oil exporter in Africa. Is it? What do you think that would say to investors outside there?
Well, you know what, Sandra? Like, I'm still hoping to drag Adiola Isobi to the studio in any of our programs to look at what is happening in the oil sector. There's a lot of destruction in the upstream, midstream, and downstream sector currently. A lot of things are happening very, very fast in these different levels of the oil sector. And I think we need an expert to really diagnose what the problems are, what's happening in these different developments. But whether we like it or not, these indications are there that all is not well, even in the oil sector for Nigeria. It is Shell. It is living offshore, looking at, divesting businesses. The problem is that a lot of their assets would have to be abandoned. Some of them would have to be sold. Those who have showed interest to buy some of these assets have not been able to raise enough money to buy them. There are also problems of environmental degradation that will come from an abandonment of a lot of their facilities and projects that are currently ongoing. So, again, all of that goes back to the uncertainty in the oil sector for Nigeria. Also bringing it down to the fact that a lot of our revenue projections in the 2024 appropriation budget are eased on some of these things in the oil sector. So, like I said, we'll try to bring in the oil and gas expert, the energy expert, to really dissect this issue. But my problem is that there are too many disruptions in the oil sector, and it's not all looking well for Nigeria.
Yes. Well, as it is now, the ongoing divestment by the international oil companies, that's IOCs in Nigeria, have brought to fore a plethora of pressing issues within the oil sector. Notable among them is abandonment, decommissioning, oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and a surge in court cases and environmental degradation. So the fact is that all of this problem is on Nigeria. These are things that could have been avoided. These are things that are totally avoidable. These are things that Nigeria could have prevented. Because what we have here is that for more than a decade, a select number of IOCs operating in Nigeria have pursued divestment strategies with a particular focus on exiting shallow waters and onshore while maintaining interest in the deep waters and downstream sectors. In recent times, Fuad, I don't know if you saw the story. Shell lost a case in the Netherlands where they were asked to reduce their oil footprint, and this offshore onshore divestment is their response to that particular one. So imagine it was so easy for them to just say, you know what, let's just stop this thing in Nigeria. And
all the pending issues around them, pending cases, litigations around them, what's going to happen? Especially on environmental degradation. Well, that's also one conversation on this particular story.
Assets are already up for sale of what? Shell assets are already up for sale. As it is now, even ExxonMobil may also be be looking at exiting the onshore scene.
As I'm saying,
yes, ExxonMobil as well. There are also talks that Nigerian Ajib Oil Company Limited is also another one that may also be leaving the onshore. Huge IOCs, actually.
Yeah, these are very big IOCs, and I think that these disruptions may not really give us a very good outlook, especially for our oil revenue projections for 2024, if you understand what I'm saying. So, but again, it's a developing story. We'll try and see how we can drag in the experts to really, break it down for us, because again, they are a bit too technical.
Yes.
To just talk about.
The story is on page 6. Further details you can get there on the Guardian newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here on the front page of the Guardian, very quickly, federal government's order on border closure still in force, says Customs, and that is on page 30 of the Guardian. So very quickly, Nigeria Customs Service NCS has said the federal government's directive on border closure is still in force. While briefing newsmen at the command headquarters in Minna yesterday, NCS controller Niger Kogi Area Command Busayo Kadijo warned smugglers and other criminal elements that there will be no sacred cow. So there have been seized items, which there were some seized items that were displaced. That were displayed, of course. So just reiterating the fact that there are some illegal routes and ways used in smuggling that have been uncovered. So please, putting it out there are still some border closure, if notice or directives that are still in force.
So, you see, nobody says we throw our borders open for security reasons and all of that, and nobody is expecting that, a country should be a dumping ground where everything and everything can just come in without standards, without restrictions and all of that. But look, we keep talking about the fact that our borders are closed, Sandra, and that some items are not supposed to come in, blah, 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 and all of that. If you go today to the market, these items are still available for people to buy. And people are saying that, look, this idea of creating this imaginary, thing in our minds that our borders are closed, and all of that, smuggling. The reality is that smuggling is still thriving. The fact that not today, if you want to buy rice, you still buy imported rice. There's still turkey, there's Ororo in the market. Simply shows that smuggling is still thriving. And that this illusion that we created, that we have people at the borders who are not allowing this to come in, is just a complete joke. I stayed years in Badagry, and I know what I'm saying. What we have done basically to allow some people feed fat on this smuggling business. If you understand what I'm saying, they are building houses, you see they are building tunnels. We just have to tell ourselves the truth, really, about how to deal with this issue of importation and exportation. I will continue to say, like experts who also should know and say, it is not compulsory that we have to plant rice if we don't have the capacity to do it. There's always what is called comparative advantage. If they give us rice, are there other things that they don't have that we can give to them to make money? That deceiving ourselves about this rice, and rice is not coming in, and all of this nonsense that we have been saying. The rice keeps coming in every day. So why don't we tell ourselves the whole truth? Every time we talk about the rice pyramid, where is the pyramid now? The anchor borrower scheme that Odefele did, what is the end result? At the things, when it comes to international trade and relationships, bilateral trade, you look at comparative advantage. If there's something that we can build, can develop easily, and give to them in exchange for the rights they give to us. Now, deceiving ourselves and just punishing people. A bag of rice is getting close to 70,000 naira, Sandra. Turkey, I think they say the kilo is about 4,000 naira. As a man, you eventually know the price when the demand is coming. Even when you try not to know the price of these things, you will eventually
because
your pocket will tell you.
Yes, exactly. Well, that is the situation that we have found ourselves. There's just a lot to look at as regards our economic outlook. Economically speaking, there's a problem. Security-wise, there's a problem. Education-wise, there's also a serious problem. What we have here,
we have to give kudos to men these days. Responsible men.
We are giving kudos to everybody.
To men.
Everybody is going through a lot.
On this one, it has to be men that are paying for all of this.
Everybody is
going through a lot. You know what it means to buy a bag of rice for close to 70,000 naira? A loaf of bread is about 1,004. And if you have some children that can eat, it's just one day to you don't finish out.
But everybody is going. The men are going through serious issues. The women are also going through serious issues. If we say, for example,
about men this morning, I will have to talk about men this morning.
No, you are talking about men. I'm talking about both genders. I'm looking at both genders. If you say the men are the one making the provision, the women are the one that have to make sure that it actually, is sustained, it is maintained. Because what if you make all of the provisions and you have an akpa as the wife, and the person just squanders your rights anyhow? How would you feel about that? So I think it's both at this time. Responsible adults who are actually taking the bull by
responsible men. You just say men, responsible men. Yeah, providing for their houses and households.
It's
okay. To commend them.
We commend them, and we commend the amazing support that the responsible wives are also giving.
Why is that every time we men try to appreciate ourselves, if we are really of freaking women in the conversation? Can we just take flowers and be happy for once?
Who wants to take flowers?
I'll be there.
That's an interesting one. Please,
Even if it's like this called flowers.
no issues, don't worry. Sage and I will give you your flowers one day. Not to worry. All right, still on the front page. Yes, kudos to our men. They are doing amazing. Protecting the home, providing for the home is not an easy one. I mean, look at that man now that had to go and pick the corpse of his daughter. That's just an unfortunate.
And they had to release the man to be looking for ransom.
To go and look for ransom.
Just imagine what's going on with the man.
In that man's mind now.
What's going on with that man's
has to
mind
look for money, and then he was called to come and pick up the dead body of your own daughter. That's a very unfortunate situation. Well, there's a lot of summons that have been done. The FCT minister, as Wike summons emergency security meeting over kidnapping. That story is on page 30. For some time now. Yes, let's have the FCT doing things that let's have the FCT FCT minister doing things for the FCT for once, since he became the FCT minister. Also, we have here inflation, currency depreciation undermining Nigeria's economic outlook. That story is on page 16 of the Guardian newspaper. This is still Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers, and we're looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. Let's quickly run through Vanguard newspaper. Massive explosion rocks Ibadan, and there are riders to that. Casualty figures unknown. Police unsure of cause. Investigation ongoing. Okay, I guess this is at the time of filing that report. 20 houses destroyed. Governor Makinde urges calm. Asks hospitals to treat injured. Hotels to accommodate victims. Patients run out of UCH. Well, the story is on page 3 of Vanguard newspaper. We also have here Tinubu Wike rise against insecurity. Vow renewed action. For one, anytime I hear renewed, I get very, very anxious.
Worried and apprehensive.
That word has become I'm developing a phobia for it. I don't know, but I just hear renewed and I'm like, ugh.
What's the phobia about? Do you think it comes with some level of just mere sloganeering and deceit, or what is the phobia about?
What did you that said? I just said I have phobia.
I'm asking a question. You should answer.
What we have here is Tinubu Wike rise against insecurity, vow renewed action. I don't know the previous action that they are renewing, but then this is what we have here. The story is on page 3.
If there's an action that we have been trying out before,
that they want to renew,
we should not renew and failed action. I think we should all do something completely different.
Thank you very much. All right, we also have here palliatives funds. There's a plot to link Baja. That's come from a source, and stories on page 4 of Vanguard newspaper. I try so hard. Well, that story is on page 4, and I think Fuad had mentioned or he glossed over it earlier on. Yes, indications have emerged that some hawks within and outside the presidential villa who are scheming to take over the job of the chief of staff, that's Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, have hatched a plan to link the former speaker to transactions carried out by suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu. So who these hawks are and what their plans are, well, you can get all of the details on page 4. Yes, I'm with you for that.
This story is what is called a planted story. With a lot of political boo-boo yaya. Let's just move on. It doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Federal government building fiscal resilience to reduce foreign borrowing, and that's coming from our finance minister, Mr. Wale Edun. Stories on page 20, so we can know what the fiscal resilience is. Yes, you can find out on page 20 of Vanguard newspaper. 83 illegal refineries uncovered in 1 week. Stories on page 9, just above the masthead of Vanguard. 83 illegal refineries.
Boys are doing something in the creeks now. What do you think? The boys are doing things in the creek.
Well, Fuad also have this interesting headline here. It says here, I prepared myself for probe. That's coming from former President Muhammadu Buhari. Say he's ready. If we want to ask him questions, we can come in and ask him questions. That story is on page 2.
He launched, the 2 books were launched in his honor. So
yes, one was written by Femi Adesina. Okay. Well, please, I'm looking forward to that one. He said he prepared
But
himself.
nobody's going to solve it. He knows that.
Yeah.
In his mind, he knows that.
All right. We also have here former Vice President and presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, is saying NNPP should have privatized refineries before rehabilitation. That story is on page 2.
That thing I was going to say yesterday, I'm shocked that we're putting the car before the horse. We spent money to renovate or revitalize, and now we are calling for private people to come and manage it. There's something fishy there. But like I said, I'm going to drag Adiola into thing and we'll look at this issue.
Yes.
But why are we now suddenly calling for private people to manage the refinery? Why did we think in money in the first place?
Maybe it's found that it's too expensive now. Well, we'll take a short break now. That's all we can take. Those are the major trending stories of all the papers this morning. Thank you for staying with us. We'll take a short break. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus. So you can share your thoughts and contribution as regards the focal points that we'll be looking at this morning. This is still Mainland 98.3 FM. We'll be right back.